Hi, I'm here with Neal Lathia, CTO of Gradient Labs. Neal, my first question for you is, you have a PhD. Why do more people not call you Dr. Lathia?
Great question. Gosh. Well, Mr. Lathia is my dad, so I'm Dr. Lathia, I guess. But I abandoned my career in academia a long time ago when I moved out into the industry. I was just way more excited about building things than researching things. And even in my research, that was a key theme there about how do you make AI systems a living reality with real impact. So yeah, maybe I should adopt the title, but I don't care for it much. Yeah.
I was just curious because most people, I feel like, are very excited to flaunt the doctor. But you just,
yeah.
You're focused on the work.
I'm focused on the work, yeah, and on Gradient Labs.
Yeah. Okay, so going back a little bit before we talk about Gradient Labs, you had kind of an interesting background. You grew up in Italy, but you went to an American school. Can you just share a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, so I have a mixed background. My mom's Irish, my dad's Indian. I was born in Belgium. I grew up in Italy. So
Wait, where in Belgium?
In Waterloo.
Okay.
And but yeah, I have family all over the world. If there's a country out there, I probably have some family there waiting for me to come and visit. And when we moved to Italy, I went to an American school there, so everyone thinks I'm American, but I'm not. I mostly find all corners of Europe to be home, and London has been home since I moved here in 2002.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. Why did you move here, and then how did you end up in the field that you're in today?
So originally I moved here to go to university. I went to UCL and I decided to do computer science. I left London a couple of times. I went to live in Melbourne for a year. I went to live in Barcelona a few times because it's wonderful there. There's great people and great food and great sunshine.
And Sagrada Familia is almost done.
Yes. Oh my God. It wasn't when I was there. But London has been home since then. When I finished computer science, London was not yet the sort of amazing tech hub that it is today. And I was thinking, have I made a big mistake? So I decided, not really intentionally, to defer my career decisions, and I fell into a PhD.
Just as you do, felon.
Yeah. So what really happened was I was curious about it, and so I went and had a coffee with a good friend of mine who's still a researcher to this day, great researcher, and he just told me about what his day looks like and what he does, and that fascinated me. And so then I started the PhD, had no idea what I was doing, and one of my PhD supervisors forwarded me this email from Netflix saying that they were announcing $1 million prize for whoever could make their algorithm 10% better.
Interesting.
And at the time it was called algorithms. It wasn't called AI or machine learning even. So that got me hooked on understanding.
Did you win the prize?
Oh, no way. Nowhere close. Okay. Actually, I formulated a lot of my research around how the prize itself wouldn't capture how a living recommender system would actually work. And that was really interesting to then see that revisited by Netflix themselves a few years later when I went back to a conference. They were presenting and they were citing some of my work. It was a beautiful moment, but I was long gone from academia by then. So yeah, from there I did a couple postdocs, and then I started my first company in Cambridge. It didn't work out, and from there I went to Skyscanner, spent some time there in their nascent London office, and then one night at dinner, my sister said, "Hey Neal, I've got this new thing. It's called Monzo," and she was like, "It's this prepaid card that does all these cool things. Why don't you check it out?" And I did. I thought it was really cool. And around the same time, I saw an email from Dimitri saying that he was hiring for the data team at Monzo. So I emailed him, and we went for a beer together. I applied to join Monzo, and kind of the rest is history. By the time I left Monzo, I was director of machine learning, had set up the team, the platform, many use cases there, but had worked with Denai and Dimitri, the other two co-founders, for 5+ years.
Wow. I want to go back a little bit to the beer.
Okay, yeah.
What was it specifically about Dimitri, about that conversation that made you want to make this transition?
Mostly because it's the kind of thing where you hear about a new company, they look exciting from the outside, but you just want to know, what are they actually like on the inside?
Yeah.
And their product looks great, but what's their culture like, and what is the data and AI team working on, and that sort of thing. So we had this beer together, and it definitely came across. It was a very, very early 0 to 1 sort of domain that at the time Monzo didn't have a machine learning team. They had 2 people working in data, and there was just so much to do. And that sort of environment really, really excites me. And plus, in a bank, you can imagine all the kinds of data that they hold, right? It's transactional data, user accounts, people getting in touch and with different kinds of problems. And that just was hugely exciting. And the prospect of coming into a company that was a tech company but was aspiring to be a bank and being part of that journey felt like this is going to happen probably once. And so I better get in there if I can.
Yeah. And as you said, haven't looked back 5 years later. So the field of machine learning has changed pretty drastically since you even got your PhD. Can you talk me through a little bit of like what that change has looked like and what it's enabled to where now you've been able to build Gradient Labs?
Yeah. So when I was doing my PhD, the popular approaches at the time looked nothing like what's popular today, but they were incredibly useful. And really, at the time, every single problem had to be solved with its own specific flavor of machine learning. And that was good. There was a lot of impact that you can have from those techniques, and lots of great companies have been built that way. But if you think about what Gradient Labs is achieving today by just leveraging large language models, we would have had to be solving for each little tiny piece of that in isolation plenty of times. And at Monzo, we did have an early version. It was called Monzo Helper at the time. And that's kind of how it worked. It had to reason about each bit of the conversation in a different way, very maybe deterministically or using various classifiers. So it's what I found is over the years, and maybe this is the biggest change that has happened, is that because you had to solve for individual use cases very specifically, there was a large part of my job that was about going and finding those use cases and going and making the case for them and saying, hey, this is something where we think AI could be useful. So that was kind of part of the thing that I would do at Monzo, is write these proposals saying, here's all the different parts of operations that we could apply ML for, and then making the case and trying to achieve that impact. But definitely the bottleneck was being able to convince people that it was worthwhile, and being able to actually get it done. Whereas I think that whole completely turned on its head when ChatGPT came out. Because suddenly nobody was asking, what's the case for AI, right? It was more like, hey, where can we use this technology? So that's really the biggest change in the last couple of years is I'm not having to go out and say, you should consider AI. It's more like everyone is scrambling for it. But the real secret sauce is still true, which is that you got to prove that it works well. Yeah, and
so 2 things strike me about what you just said. The first being that these very specific use cases, is there an element of that still holds true when we think about horizontal versus vertical specific domains for AI?
Yeah, I think there's this one thing that the AI or ML community has gone back and forth on over the years. Every time some new innovation comes out, it's portrayed as extremely general. And so if you rewind the clock quite a lot, and in financial crime, we were training models and deploying them, you really had to know about financial crime to be able to create the right features and the right inputs for the model. And that now the story becomes that large language models are very general. They can do all these things out of the box. But what we found is that the domain expertise, the importance of domain expertise has not gone away. So in customer support automation specifically, from a distance, it sounds like it's all the same. It's just people getting in touch with companies. But if you go in and live and breathe customer support inside of a bank, you would know that it's a very, very different type of problem that needs to be solved, as opposed to getting in touch with e-commerce provider,
right.
that kind of thing. So although the technology has been generalized a lot, I think the importance of that domain expertise remains. Maybe not so much at the low-level technical aspect of it, but in terms of bringing it to life and making it work.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think the other piece there, and it's kind of connected to the domain expertise, is that you mentioned that no one's asking for the use case anymore because they're just scrambling to get more AI.
Yeah.
But I actually think it's a double-edged sword a little bit, because fundamentally with any technology investment or really anything worth doing should have a problem in mind and a problem that you're trying to solve. But that's partially why I think the space that we're operating in is so rife with use cases and challenges and things that can be automated and things that can be made more efficient or effective or more scalable. So I'm just curious if you have any, is that intuition correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
If you look out across the landscape of AI startups today, I think there's probably a class of them who are solving problems that feel obvious. So using AI to make software engineers more effective and more productive. Using AI for software engineering seems like one of those ones. Using AI for customer support seems like one of these obvious use cases. And then there's a whole bunch of really outlandish ones out there.
Yeah.
And I think that probably splits the startup ecosystem into a little bit, where the outlandish ones are trying to make the case for their problem, whereas the obvious ones are trying to drive value and compete with each other. So where we operate in, it's a lot more in the nobody's questioning that customer support automation needs to happen, but they are questioning who can make it happen best and in the safest way. And that's where we come in.
And so how are we the ones that are able to do it best?
Yeah, so I think to your earlier question about domain expertise, we have been living and breathing that problem space for several years, have seen it from many different angles. To be honest, when we started at Monzo, the customer support team was incredibly tiny, and there are these fantastic stories of how they could go above and beyond on every case, just because there were so few of them and so few customers. And we've seen that morph into the enormous company, enormously successful company that it is today, and how scaling is difficult. And it's difficult because it's not just about catering to more volume. It's that you need to be safe. You need to attend to your regulatory obligations. You need to keep your customers front and center. And so it's not just a question of throwing answers at customers and see what sticks, but really about being able to attend to this two-sided problem.
And how do you make a non-deterministic system safe?
Yeah, so particularly in the UK, there's and Europe and beyond, there's legislation that's coming into place that can. What we have done is we've taken these regulatory obligations and baked them into our AI agent. Nobody needs to build that. We offer it out of the box, and importantly, we are accountable for it working well. So I think that's kind of a really important part of the AI agent that we offer. And equally, by focusing on financial services, we have seen that many of them are tackling the same problems across their customer bases about making it safe, making it effective, making it understand customer context with data or with the absence of data, or understanding how customers are speaking and what you need to do, what the right thing to do in different cases is. So yeah, I think it's a matter of taking all of the expertise that we've had and all the experience we've had and that the team has, and baking it into our AI agent, as opposed to taking an approach where we let our partners try to build on top of what we offer them.
Yeah. And something else, speaking of having essentially just done it before, having had a lot of at-bats, is you've spoken before about this concept of implicit knowledge, and that there's a lot of complexity where you're just uploading your knowledge base and having an agent trained on that isn't really effective. Can you speak to why that is and how we solve that?
Yeah. The analogy that we used at the very beginning when we were starting Gradient Labs, we didn't have an AI agent, and we had a whiteboard. And we were thinking, how can we build a framework to reason through this problem? And I think it was Dimitri who said, well, what would a human do in this case? And that has become a meme inside of our company. We use it all the time. We use it to guide how we design our agent and our systems. But really, it's a very loaded question, because even with something as simple as knowledge base, a human would read the knowledge base, but they would have an intuitive sense about this knowledge looks like it's out of date, or this I shouldn't say this to the customer even though it's written down here, and all of these sort of aspects. So
just can you give an example, because I know exactly what you mean from context, but when you say I shouldn't say that even though it's written down, what's like a concrete example of that?
Probably a good example could be that if customer accounts have been flagged for suspicious activity, then if you told the customer that, you would actually be breaking the law in the UK. This is a tipping off regulation. So it's something that your AI agent would naturally do, because it might say, hey, your account might be under suspicion of money muling, and so that's what might be happening, and that's why you might not be be able to make transactions. So that would just be like a really high impact failure if an AI agent just did that. So which it
easily could.
It very easily could, but what happens with humans? Humans join a company, they get training. Part of that training is to be told about what they are and aren't allowed to say to customers. Their own conversations get reviewed, and if they have anything that goes wrong, they get feedback. And so this is all the dynamic of what would happen between humans that we try to reflect inside of our AI agent and our platform.
Yeah, that's great. So what are you most excited about for our future?
I think, well, it's there's a short-term, a long-term view. In the short term, we have built an AI agent that works really well across multiple channels, including voice, and bringing it out into financial services and banks in particular really, really excites me, just because I've seen how hard it is to get this technology over the line. And we partner really deeply with each company that we work with. So we get to know them, become friends with them is what I say. In the long term, as I see this come together, it's not just about having an AI agent that does one thing and does that one thing well, but having a suite of either, it depends how you want to frame it, a suite of AI agents or one AI agent that can do many, many different things. But again, if I anchor on our founding analogy of what would a human do, inside of a bank, a customer operations specialist isn't just sitting there waiting for the next inbound support ticket to hit their desk all the time. There are other things that they do. They can attend to back office tasks. They can reach out to customers when suspicious activity has happened on their account. They can intervene when things are looking fishy. So while we've been bringing out all of our different product features one by one into the market, behind the scenes, we're thinking about how to make them holistically work together in a very fluid way.
Yeah, really exciting. Well, Neal, thank you so much. This was great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.